Okay, so here we go. Bit different today, so we have Brady in the hot seat. He's been the brains behind these podcasts, and a lot of people have been asking, well, when are we going to interview Brady? So we've taken on and also just asked for some questions from some of the staff, contractors, industry friends, and also family. So there's going to be a few little curly ones in there too from the three children. So here we go. Welcoming Brady Williams to his own podcast, The Active Insight.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's weird sitting on this side though. It is kind of funny. It is kind of strange, and not having the little box in front of me there. I'm a bit nervous. That's all right. It's cool.
It's going to be good. So let's make a bit of a start here. So mainly industry questions, like I said, and there'll be in between a bit of a quick, fast, fat questions as well.
Feels like I'm on Mastermind. Feels like I'm on a game show.
Okay, right. So you've been in the building management industry for over 18 years now. And what was your introduction into the multi-skill, fast-moving, high-pressured and service industry?
Crikey, it is all of the above. The introduction to the industry came, I guess, at a time in my life when I was in between jobs, let's say. Well, that was the truth. And basically saw this ad in the paper, as you did back in those days, 2003 it was, saying like they were advertising for a live-in building manager, and I was like, live-in, that sounds cool, get free accommodation. And building managing, I was like, don't really know what that is, but sounds interesting. And what I've been doing previous to that had sort of similar, I guess, crossover elements when you're dealing with buildings and assets and contractors and things like that, and people. So yeah, applied for that and went and had an interview. And the people that we were working for at the time, or who were interviewing, seemed to like what we were about, even at a very young age. I think I was only about 23 back then.
I recall Robert being a bit of a mentor for you, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, Robert Hodgson, yeah, top man. And he's someone that I'd really love to get in and do one of these with, actually. I got I'm very fond of Robert. He was absolutely a mentor for me back in those days. And I've managed to reconnect with him recently, which has been cool. And so next time he's up in Auckland, we'll go and have lunch or a beer or whatever. But yeah, I'd love to do this with him because he's kind of where it all started for me.
No, that's it would be interesting just to see where he's at too. Now, hopefully, I'd like to think that he's retired and enjoying life.
Sounds
like
it.
A lot of work into that.
Yeah.
And so, what are your first memories of Active?
First memories of Active, crikey, that's 2006. I remember we had to set up a company, like for the purposes of complying with the law, essentially. And so we set up this company, and we thought back in those days when the Yellow Pages was still a thing, it was like, hey, let's be at the front of the Yellow Pages. So the name had to start with an A, and I guess we weren't going to call it Abacus, but it was Active was pretty close to the front of the phone book back then. But yeah, it was all about I guess doing a whole lot of things that we'd never done before, and it was setting up a company and figuring out over time what went along with that. It's one thing to provide the service, but it's all the behind the scenes stuff when you're starting out, like doing your GST and having an accountant and understanding all the ramifications of tax and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught out in business. They don't understand that stuff early on. And I didn't understand it either, but we managed to fulfill our obligations and pay our tax and all that sort of thing, pay our GST. So yeah, doing the work was not the hard part. It was just all those little compliance things that you had to do in the background. So that was a learning curve.
Yeah, no, it was the setting up. So building management came natural to us, but it was the background work and just learning. I remember a lot of reading and asking questions with people that we felt comfortable with that did have a company at the time. So it was a real learning curve. Okay, and so first name only. 3 staff members that come to your mind, and who are they, and why do they come to your mind?
That's an interesting question. 3 staff members. Kylee. And then I think it's people that have stuck around for a number of years. So you get people like I was allowed to be 3. I'm just going to rattle off a few. You get people like Drew Hilton, James Pearce. What was I supposed to use their full name? Anyway, too bad. Mike O'Keefe, those guys back in the old days. Lance Coleman. Some of the very original crew from when it went from being 2 to a handful of us. Those are probably like the main ones that stand out, because they had a lot of input into the business in the early days, and then through the more recent part. Hopefully I get to do this again at some stage, and there'll be some current names that are on the roster at the moment that I'll be rattling off. But those are probably the 4, 5, including yourself, for me.
Yeah, no, all of those names would probably come to my mind initially as well, and it's been great to see them grow just through their career, progress and learn a lot as well. I think people. Yeah,
that's what Active's sort of, I guess, rightly or wrongly, I think it's always been a platform where people have come in, contributed for a number of years, and then moved on. And I think people have always moved on to bigger and better things, and I think it's satisfying to play a part in people's career growth. That, like I've said before, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to see people doing well, and even if we only contribute to that for a couple of years, it's really neat.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, back in the day, you'd stay with a job for 40 years, and that was quite normal. These days, around 5 to 10 years is the new normal, and I guess that's when we identified we had to change or bring in resource and tools that would keep continuity, so that it's the new norm is quite normal and manageable for companies or a business like ourselves. Okay, so next one, husband-wife businesses. They have their positive points and their challenges. Let's start with the challenges, and we'll finish with some positive points so we can go home talking to each other.
We're going home in separate cars too, by the way. Positives, is that what we're starting off with?
Yes, yeah.
Positives. There's plenty. I think you actually get to know your spouse a whole lot better than if you didn't work with them. Because like they say, you spend so much time with people that you work with, and that's why you've got to enjoy where you work. And then you slap a marriage into that, essentially, and it's like, okay, so you end up being married, and you're married to your business partner, essentially. So man, you end up spending 24/7 together. And I think when we first started out, we found that quite tough. And I think being the 2 stubborn types that we are with each other, it's like, it took us a while to figure out what we were both good at, and then figuring out how to point that in the right direction.
Well, it was using our strengths and also recognizing each other's strengths and giving each other space to what we were good at, which then had a positive positive impact on the company, because we were using our strengths in the right way.
But I think that's definitely a positive side of things, and I think you learn how to talk to each other on different levels as well. Like, you're not just a husband and wife; you're a business partnership, your parents, and then your friends to other people as well. And I think one thing that I notice when we get together with our friends, with our extended friend circle, and even family, to be honest, is that we have a very different relationship to our friends. Like, I'm not saying our friends have bad relationships. It's just that they have different marriages, I guess, because they have their own individual lives, whereas our life is very much together.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think one thing that stands out for me is we can be in a meeting or in a room, and we both know what the question or the answer is going to be. It's like we can read each other's mind almost.
We're twins, finishing each other's sentences. Yeah.
No, very good. Okay, and so yeah, I guess those are the we talked about the strengths, and what are the challenges? I mean, you kind of touched on them initially at the first few years. It was a bit tricky. Are there any other kind of challenges that you can see?
Yeah, better work stories, because we have the same work stories. So it's like, fuck, you can't like. I kind of envy people that have two different jobs, because they can go home at night and talk about their different work stories. We talk about the same work stories, and it's like, oh, whatever. And in a way, that's not entirely a bad thing. But yeah, so there's that, and then there's it's kind of slipped my mind at the moment, but it was along the similar lines of the work stories. I'll think about it soon.
Yeah, I think probably the other challenge, and we recognise it, is making sure that we don't take work home. So when we're with the children, they are getting us as parents and not having to feel like they're sitting at a boardroom table at dinner time. So
yeah, but that took a while to actually do, and to an extent, that was actually my other point, was that sometimes it feels like it doesn't actually stop, like, and you just go from the office to home and we're still talking about work. And I think our kids have grown up around that, and they're used to it. Like, they don't know any different, and they come out with some pretty awesome questions at times when they ask about business and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think that sometimes there's that, we forget to draw that line between work and home life, but that's life, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so next question is, you're the Director of Active Building Management, a company that provides professional and experienced BM services to our body corporates. Also a company that provides and supports, has supported over probably 100 individuals since we've been established. When did you decide you wanted to be a director of a company?
That kind of relates to the very first question, because you actually don't realise that you're a director of a company until things start getting serious around those different compliance things, and you've got to sign off your annual returns and have your annual like AGM and all that sort of thing, and you go, oh, I just thought I was a building manager. But the obligations of a company director are a lot more full on, I guess, than what we actually either think or know about. Like, you can dig in and you can do qualifications about being company directors and that sort of thing, and a lot of people are actually professional directors. I guess we are professional directors in the fact that we manage our own business and we direct our own business, but I'd never really even thought about to be a director of a business. Never thought about it. I thought, oh, it'd be cool to own your own business, without really thinking that you have to be a director of it as well. Because you got the director thing, then you got the shareholder thing, so you can be one or the other, depending on how you're structured in that. But did I ever want to be a director of a business? No. Do I want to be now? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just it's like the frog in the pot. You kind of you have these obligations and you just get used to them, and it's just part of life. If it's nothing sort of new, but it gives you the ability to make choices, and I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, and I think because we are quite diligent, we're always learning and wanting to do things and make things right as well. So we did take it seriously, and we do take it seriously, and I think it's kind of lucky that we do want to continue learning and improving, and just making sure we're in front of the right people to ask the right questions as well. So that's really helped.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably don't understand the responsibilities of a company director until the shit hits the fan, maybe until it's too late. So you're often thinking of potential things that can go wrong and how to keep your ass out of jail, essentially. It's like, especially with health and safety stuff. I mean, if you're negligent in an aspect of how your health and safety operates, you can seriously end up in jail. And no one has yet, but there's always that thought there, and you don't want your name sort of slandered through the papers and things like that. So you're constantly, I guess, on alert for thinking about not so much how to keep out of trouble, but it's like, okay, what do I have to do to keep this thing on track rather than worrying about going off track? So yeah, it's probably a simplistic answer.
Yeah, and I think because we've always been people focused with clients, but also our staff as well, it has made that side of things easier because we're willing and wanting to make sure we're doing things properly. Because it is a big commitment. You do feel the pressure of looking after those individuals, but also knowing that they've got families too.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's part of it's probably the most rewarding aspect too, I think, is that you're contributing to people's lives, and that's that's hugely satisfying.
So a question just from that as well is, what are your strengths as a director?
Shit, I don't know. Ask someone else. I wouldn't have a clue. Oh no, I'm not a detail guy, so I'd find it really hard to answer that question. I think I don't know. Yeah, you probably have to ask someone else.
I can answer most of that, and you're a good people's person, and you've got good leadership skills. You look at the bigger picture as well. So I guess there's 3 for you. Yeah,
thanks, I'll take those.
Okay, so next question, and I'm starting to read some of the questions from some of the staff now. So here we go. If you weren't in the building management industry, what would your employment be, or what would your career path look like?
God, I'd love to know who asked that. I'd be in something that involved, I guess, people, listening, but also I'd love to work in a restaurant or bar. Like, I just love that whole, especially if you're like a real cool one that was kind of not too big, not too small, quite intimate, but thrived on like personalised service. I think that'd be quite a cool thing. I mean, it's tough industry being in hospo and that, and you probably wouldn't want to be in that industry around COVID times, obviously, but yeah, I think being able to interact with people on that level is pretty cool. I like the idea of possibly working with other smaller businesses, like companies that are similar size to us, and potentially in some sort of like not coaching but advisory capacity or something like that. I think we've learned a lot over the years, and I think there's an untapped sort of vein of information there that could be beneficial to other people. And helping young kids into their own businesses would be quite satisfying, I think. Yeah, so something along the lines of helping people out, still with business, maybe a bit of hospitality. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a quick questions now, and these have come about from, again, staff, children. So let's see how you go. Short answers or choosing an answer.
Righto.
Okay, so favourite sports team?
Oof, it's always the All Blacks, even now.
Who would you invite to dinner and why?
Oh, crikey. Like someone well known. I guess given I'm like into the old podcasting thing at the moment, I'd quite like to sit down with Joe Rogan and pick his brain. I enjoy his podcasts, and I think he speaks to so many varied people in that. I think he'd be quite good conversation around a dinner table. He's like the first one that springs to mind.
Great. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that was supposed to be a short answer, right?
Favorite food?
Yeah. Oh, favorite food? At the moment it's probably a 12-hour smoked brisket, I think.
Nice. Yep. Favorite drink?
Oh, crikey. Bourbon and Coke or red wine.
Sweet or sour?
That's actually a tough question. Sweet or sour? I'll probably have to go sweet. Yeah.
We have 3 children. Who's your favourite?
Well, I've always told all 3 of them. Quick answer is Baz.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Shit, at the moment, probably a place like Aitutaki would be pretty cool to live in.
Yeah. Winter or summer?
Oof. Definitely summer, but I don't hate winter because you get to dress up warm. Yeah.
Pop, rock, or reggae?
Oh, not pop. So I'll be rock and reggae because I love my rock, my 70s rock. Grew up like a bit of a Rastafarian when I used to have dreadlocks, believe it or not. Yeah, so I love Bob Marley and that sort of thing. But yeah, so no pop, rock and reggae.
Great. One food you can't stand?
Artichoke hearts.
Mother Nature's cycle or climate change?
Oh, fucking hell. Of course it's bloody Mother Nature's cycle. Don't get me started.
Great. Okay.
That's a wind up, that question.
Okay, so
you're doing well, actually. I'm quite impressed. You're doing well. You're rummaging around on a laptop as well as switching the cameras. It's you're doing well for your first shot of it.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure what the editing is going to look like, but that's okay. Okay. So here's a bit of a different one, and this comes from one of the staff. If Brady had a choice of a new world-class entertainment venue to add to Auckland's landscape, what would you choose? A swimming pool, heated pools, or a water slide park? And we're talking big here, like something that's going to really stand out in the city there. A new large theme park, Disneyland, New Zealand, maybe. An indoor food market venue showcasing diverse and cheap food. Or a nightclub bar music venue with expansive views of the city lights.
Water park, nightclub,
Disneyland,
or what was the fourth one? Yep.
And nightclub music venue with expansive views of the city lights.
Water park, probably not a water park because we're surrounded by water anyway. Disneyland, mate, you can't go past Rainbow's End. No, it's shit. I don't like. I actually think the food market, yeah, because that sort of. I mean, but Auckland's got so much food anyway. Like, there's nothing like Auckland's actually got all that stuff already. So I'm going to answer it differently, and I'm going to say we need a decent stadium. And I've always had this idea of a stadium that combines a bit of what we do. So it's like it's a massive like open green space that is a playing surface, and the stands are obviously the stands on the inside, but on the outside they're apartment buildings, and so people can have So you kind of combine a stadium that is only used for like 1% of its life, and you make it into a living space. And then when there's games on, people can literally live at the game and watch the game. So the stadium's like normal on the inside, all the apartments on the outside, and then when there's no games on, the fields are open and people just walk through like a park. I think that'd be awesome. Yeah.
No, that's good. I think New Zealand's slowly kind of tried to look at that through two complexes that I can think of. Hampton Downs, which has those apartments just above the speedway there, and Alexandra Park. With the racing and things. I mean, if you're a true horse racing enthusiast, then that's probably just a magic apartment or lifestyle there.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, right. So next question is, you worked hard behind the scenes to reassure our staff and their employment over COVID, as well as keep them safe and while carrying out the BM services. What were some of the challenges that come to mind just around facing the challenges of COVID and as a director and owner of a company? What were your challenges?
It was mainly around the uncertainty around what to do in certain circumstances. I mean, when we started having positive, what were they called? Positive cases in the buildings, there was actually no guideline or support. Well, there was support, but there was no guideline on how to deal with them. And granted, the government, I guess they were a bit slow off the mark with that. But when we did have dealings with those government departments at the time, it was actually pretty good. But you could tell that they were scrambling to make up solutions for things that they hadn't thought of. So that was a tough one, just knowing and trying to, you're dealing with people that were massively sort of unsure and kind of afraid, actually, back in those early days of COVID, about what COVID meant for them in an apartment building. And then you get a positive case and it's like, crikey, we've got to go in there now and tell people and try and come up with a solution to keep the building occupied, but also move that person, because that's when they were moving people physically out of the building and into quarantine. And it felt like a weird sort of science fiction movie in a lot of ways. And we look back at it now and we go, gee, that was weird. It was a weird time.
Yeah, it was, and it kind of it felt like a lot of fear had been created.
Well, it was. That's what it was all about. Yeah.
Well, and that made it even more difficult, I guess, because we had to be very careful on communication. So very upfront, making sure that the residents were aware, but trying to get it across so that they, trying to take that fear out, I think, for the residents, but also our staff. They were still seeing or having uneasy moments as well. So yeah, it was a bit of a tricky time. Next question: a moment that saved your life.
Holy heck. A moment that saved my life. I don't think I've had a moment where my life's been in danger. Not that I can remember. Probably the only thing that springs to mind is actually going to hospital when I had pneumonia back in 2014. Being quite sick for a couple of days, and it wasn't just a classic hangover. It was feeling sick, and then going to the doctors with a high temperature, and they're like, "Oh no, you're right. Just take these and go back home." And then the day after, still not any improvement. And then that night going to the doctor again, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're actually quite sick." I was like, "Yeah, thanks. I feel like shit." And then so ending up in hospital for I think it was 5 days or so with pneumonia. And I just remember that moment where I was lying in bed, in the hospital bed, and then I was in a forest, and I was walking through a forest, and I think I said something to you at the time because you were sitting beside me, and you were like, "What?" I said, we're walking through the forest. This is awesome. And you're like, "Oh shit, there's something not right here." And that was when the old temperature was, I think it was over 40 degrees and stuff, and starting to hallucinate and that. But yeah,
I do remember that because it was just on visitors having to leave for the evening, and they hadn't given you any medication, so they weren't bringing your temperatures down and things. And I think that's what was happening there. Like you were just starting to hallucinate because of your temperatures. And I do remember the nurse coming in saying that you've got to go, and I said, "Well, I'm not actually leaving. I'll be sitting here until I can see him not talking nonsense."
You were there for a long time.
No. Okay. What is your biggest motivation?
My family, for sure. Making sure that it's a hell of a responsibility to have a family, and I think you, as much as day-to-day life gets in the way, they're still the main reason for doing what we do, and making sure that I say our family is in our immediate, like our 3 kids and stuff, and making sure that they have the best sort of start, and that we can support them in what they want to do, and giving them a good launch pad. But also, I was saying to someone last night about how Jaden's doing flying and that, and I mentioned that he works to pay for some of that, because we're not just going to pay for all of his flying stuff. And the guy I was talking to was like, "Man, that's bloody awesome that you're doing that." And I said, "Yeah, we just want them to understand the value of it, and they've got to contribute to it." Because I think if you give kids or anybody too much too soon, they misinterpret the value of what they're doing, and potentially they might take it for granted, and I don't want that.
That was a really good answer. Okay, so the next one is totally off topic.
Cool.
Going to something else now. If you could hire someone to help you, would it be with cleaning, cooking, or backyard work?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that question, because I'd love to have a chef. That'd be epic. Like if you had a chef that just lived in your house, And he would, every meal was just prepared and it was different, and they knew what you liked and stuff. That'd just be the coolest. So the rest of the stuff I can do that, but just I actually enjoy cooking, and we enjoy food and that, but just having a chef would be so cool. Yeah. So a chef for me.
Great. So if you have the chef, then I guess I'll get the cleaner. So we've got two of them covered.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving to cars. I mean, there's quite a few people that like cars.
Yeah.
And I just on this, it's been interesting when I told a few people that I was going to be interviewing you. A lot of them wanted to put some questions. So you've got a lot of people that want to know more about you, and they're just, I guess they're just interested to see how you work or how you tick.
Nice, that's cool.
So the next one is top 3 cars.
Oh, love me Jags, as you know. Jags, and then I'd be, I'm always a sucker for a Holden. The Holden is like the roots sort of car for me. Definitely not a Ford. But beyond that, and Aston Martin. Yeah, that's the beautiful car for me. I mean, Jag, Holden, Aston Martin. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I was waiting for Aston Martin to come in there somewhere. One of our youngest boy, I just remember I think I was a little bit out of names with the third one. I said, Brady, it's up to you to name our third child. And you had a few, but Aston came out, and it was, Aston, like Aston Martin.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that one to come out as well. Okay, so now this question is, I guess, about the active insights. So it was just a thought for quite some time, especially over COVID, and you weren't really doing anything with it. And then I guess you were starting to listen to a few more podcasts, driving in and out of the city, and then you kind of said, well, I'm gonna start doing podcasts. I'm like, okay, another idea, we'll see how it goes. But you've actually brought it from just a thought to what we have, or what you have now, and even in the you've had about a month or 6 weeks of podcasts, and the amount of people that have just want to come and talk to you, and just because you're such a good listener, it's been a really good hobby, I guess, or initiative. How have you found the whole the starting of the Active Insights, and where you're at where you are now?
Oh, I've loved it. I needed some sort of little hobby or something just to get me going again, because like you say, I have issues with getting stale, and it's like you get a bit bored and ho-ho with things, and so that all came about from obviously over like the various lockdowns we've had, increasing listening to various podcasts and things, and I just thought, it's such an interesting format, and like I've always said, I don't give a shit if people don't listen to these. They're there for posterity, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the interaction and talking to a lot of people. But it was old Matt over in Australia there who asked me to go on his one, and that's when I was like, I've got to get off my ass and make this thing happen now, because it's one thing to have an idea, but it's another thing to actually make it happen. And so once I did hit one, I was like, okay, did all my research and all the various gear, and because I always wanted to do video, and audio, because I think the audio ones are just boring as batshit, and the video part is actually quite engaging, and we've only scratched the surface with it, which is really cool. But and so it was about researching all the gear. I guess I wanted to do it sort of as best as I could to start with. Like, I didn't want to have it look like shit to start with. I wanted to try and make it look, as like cool. Like we've got the backdrops, and we've got all the lights and all that sort of thing. And so I wanted to make sure that it was, even at the start, like it looked good and sounded good. So investigating the equipment was a big one for me. and then buying it all, and then trying to get it working. Like I remember I had Jared come in one time because he's a podcast guy, and we had everything, had all the gear we thought, and it just wouldn't work. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, why aren't we recording? Why isn't this bloody gear working? And so it literally sat in a box for a good month or so. And then I came across a couple of guys on LinkedIn, Will Fleming and Guy Pigden from Campfire Studios, and their goal for the year is to start 100 podcasts. And I was like, shit, I need to talk to those guys. And so engaged with them, and Guy came in and he helped me sort of set up the gear, and he goes, oh, you got a couple of like quite crucial parts missing. And so he gave me a shopping list. We went out and bought that gear. He came back in again and we set it all up, and it was going, and I was like, shit, we're so close now. And then it was just a matter of figuring out, I always knew I wanted to talk to just people that sort of touch our business, other businesses that interact with us, and just to do something different. I mean, no one's doing it, I don't think, and I'm like, well, I'll do it, and just talk to the various industries around what we do, and I've loved it so far. Like this here, like if this goes to this will go online, I guess this is number 20, and I was like, shit, who knows how many we might do, but it seems to have gone really quickly, but I've just really enjoyed all the people that I've talked to so far. Like, and we've only released like 7, so there's a hell of a backlog, and I'm like, I'll probably have to release 2 a week now just to catch up. But I just enjoy the conversation and try and keep it fairly, not too intense, and just fairly trying to keep it flowing, I guess. And we just sit here and have a conversation, and it seems to be working. Yeah, but like I said, it's not going to be. It's things like this obviously take a long time to gain momentum. But if you don't start, you don't know. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. If it's like if you don't ask a question, then you can't get an answer. So you definitely got to start it. And things, I think with how we work and how Even Active was created, it's very organic. We're not corporate. We're more about finding our interest or passion and then going for it that way. So we kind of our motivations are a little bit different. And just on the podcast and listening to them, I think my favourites so far are our staff. Just like hearing their stories, like you see them around the office and that, but just to have time to sit and talk and listen to them, really interesting. Like they all come from interesting backgrounds, and just their views on certain things is it's good to hear. Yeah,
I did 2 more today with the team. I did had a sit down with Monique and with Jay, and man, they were just great chats, and it's surprising what you end up talking about, because we have a loose sort of agenda of questions and that, but largely it's just sitting down and seeing where it goes. Sometimes you end up sort of talking about stuff you didn't even think about at the start, and that's what I quite enjoy about it. There's an unknown aspect. It's like going on a kind of mystery trip, essentially, where you go, we're going in this direction, but then you go, you take tangents and you take turn-offs, and you end up in a totally different sort of place, but you get some really good, I guess, natural. I don't want manufactured answers. I want like people to be just comfortable and just relaxed and spontaneous. But I think you actually get a lot closer to the truth when people are just relaxed in that sort of environment.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's actually just made me have a bit of a thought. I popped down to the staff room and the lunch room today, and there's about 4 or 5 of the building managers just kind of taking or comparing notes or bouncing ideas off each other. And you could have a reality show with some of the the things that they're dealing with day to day, and just the ease that they are able to answer problems or questions or help support is been really good.
That's part of the strength around the team is the ability for them to sit down and and just share stories. That's hugely beneficial. And we encourage that environment around here, and everyone's sharing experiences and helping each other out and stuff. So yeah, that's always been what we've been built on. No one around here is sort of guarding their experience or their position or whatever. It's all open.
Well, it's similar to the podcast. It's sharing knowledge. Instead of holding it, like holding your cards close, it's sharing knowledge so that we can improve the industry or understand the industry better as well. I think what you've put together with the podcast and the active insights is just a start, and I think it is it will have momentum.
The other sort of idea that I've had around it is actually I'd love to get some of our competitors in, and just to pick their brains so we can all talk about this, because I know that for a fact that across the handful of other companies out there that we're all facing the same problems, and I think I'd like to think that as a wee industry within Auckland that we can sit down and talk about them. I'll be reaching out to a few of the competitors in a few weeks' time and just saying, hey, come and have a chat. We'll sit down and have a beer or a glass of wine and just talk about the industry, because the industry's big, and it's one of those weird little things that kind of flies under the radar. But when you look at it as if you're trying to put a dollar value on buildings and all that sort of thing, is be bloody hard to do. It's one of those industries that I think it flies under the radar a wee bit, but it just needs good people, and I think we've been instrumental in trying to attract good people to the industry, because without people, we don't have a company, or we don't have an industry. So
that's a good point. And I think Auckland's big enough, and there's enough apartments in Auckland City to share them around, I guess. And the more support we can give each other as companies, or even one-man bands. Jay and I were talking about it yesterday with, there's a bit of burnout for one-man bands. They're 24/7. They've got to answer their phone all the time. They don't get to switch off. And with the whole COVID and just how things are panning out in Auckland City with some of the complexes, a lot of burnout, mental health, sleep deprived, and we were talking about, I'm like, well, how can we help them? And we thought about a building manager one-man band that we had helped out in 2012, offering him after-hours support so he can turn his phone off at 6 o'clock at night, knowing that site's still okay, but he can actually rest. And that's been 10 years now, and it's probably helped him stay in that position, so he hasn't gotten the burnout. And it's kind of nice to know that we've been able to support a one-man band building manager in a way. It's kind of helping each other and sharing the knowledge and understanding that we do have the same problems and how could we fix them.
Yeah, there's still a lot of those one-man bands out there. They might manage a building or a couple of buildings or whatever, but essentially they are they're contractors. And the expectation on the individual to be available 24/7, in my opinion, is just totally unrealistic. It's an old sort of concept, if you ask me, and we've managed to navigate that over the years and structure our business in a way that we still are 24/7, but we're not relying on one person to be 24/7, whereas these poor old one-man bands are, and we've been there ourselves, and that's why. That's why we set the business up like we've structured it like we have, to be able to deal with that, so you're not getting bloody burnt out, so you're not getting, having issues with your mental health and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, when we talk about the whole act of being organically growing, I guess, I do remember there was one night, it was just you and I at that time, really early back in the day, and you said, I can't get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to let drunks back in their apartments and get wake up at 6 and continue on. Or we're going to get I think you called them night patrol back then, and it was just a light bulb moment, because you were understanding the situation and trying to find ways to fix it.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that that's the way to go. Like, you can't expect a building manager to be available 24/7. And I think committees and people in the industry that do have got rocks in their head. I mean, if you put the shoe on the other foot and you said, okay, well, you do this job for a day or a week, and you try and be available 24/7, it doesn't work. And we've just got to keep crushing that expectation that's just how we're going to operate as an industry. Yeah, we can operate as an industry, but it needs to be set up in a way like what we've done with Active. You need to have people that are available for certain shifts, if you like, and hence the after hours, as it's called now, working from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. 7 days a week. Great guys that do a great job, Mark and Jay. But then we also have the weekend cover roster, because the 24 aspect of 24/7 is daunting enough, let alone you must do that 7 days a week, and that's the bloody thing. It's like, really? And when do I get to go on holiday? Oh, and if you go on holiday, you've got to pay someone else to take your role over. It's like, it's bullshit, and like, I think what we've done over the years is slowly try and break that down to the point where I think a lot of the team probably don't appreciate where we've come from in that regard, and how building management kind of used to be, where you would have to be 24/7. So yeah, when I see 24/7 in these agreements and contracts and that, I think I need to have a chat with you about this. Yes, you can expect 24/7 and you'll get it, but it's not going to be from one person, it's got to be from a team.
Yeah, and that's just to make the role long lasting, putting in systems and processes and a team that can deal with the issues or what's at hand is really important, and to not have to rely on just one person. It makes it a career as well. Otherwise you do get the turnover. You get so much turnover if you didn't have the resource in place or support for the staff or the building manager. Okay. Right, so next question is, what is one piece of advice you'd be able to give someone starting out in your business line or career?
So starting out as a building manager?
Yes, that's right.
Come work for us.
Great answer. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that.
Don't bother trying to do it by yourself because of all the things that I've just said. Yeah. If you want to get into it, come and see us.
Okay, so next question is, what's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
Biggest failure was putting too much trust in people. And what did I learn from it? I didn't learn not to trust people, that's for sure, because I think that's a horrible way to live. But I guess what I learned from it is that don't overestimate people rather than underestimate them, because if you don't take your eye off the ball, because I guess taking the eye off the ball and trusting that someone has got something under control, and finding out that they don't, and learning a massive lesson is that's a hard one to I guess come to terms with, because you feel like a dick at the end of the day, and you feel like you've failed, like the question suggests. So yeah, that'd be my answer to that one.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's trying to work. An answer. Oh, sorry. That's a good answer. And where I was going with that is it expectations? Like, is it putting too much expectations, or is it just the value, like your own self-value of just trusting someone to be able to look after something the same way that you would? Yeah,
I think I trust people probably too quickly and too easily, and you can argue that I should learn from that, but I don't want to be the type of person that doesn't trust people either. So it's about sort of I guess looking at at trust as an issue, but putting in little fail safes around that to be able to actually monitor that level of trust, or that obligation that you've entrusted someone with. Because I think at the end of the day, unless people are financially invested in something, they probably don't give as much of a shit as someone that is. So then it's very easy for someone just to go, oh well, that failed, I'm leaving now because I've got that choice to leave. And it's like, shit, I don't have that choice to leave. So from that point of view, it's that's a tough one. And I mean, like I said, I never want to be a person that doesn't trust people, because we're in a people industry. I think if you come across as being untrusting, you're gonna have a hard time attracting good people to your business.
That's a good point, and it's actually made me just think of another question for you.
Cool.
So if you were to be employed by someone, who would you want your boss to be?
Who would I want my boss to be? Like a particular type of person, or an actual someone that you know?
No, a particular person that you know. So it could be staff, it could be someone in the industry, friend, family, just someone that you would want to be your boss.
Yeah, okay. So my opinion on myself is that I actually think I'm a better like a lieutenant rather than a captain. I actually think I'm better off in a position where I'm not in charge and that I'm supporting the person in charge. I just think that's better suited to my nature and my skill set. So I'd love to work for someone that was like an absolute legend in the industry, and they were kind of at a point in their life where they were kind of just wanting to step back a bit, and they entrusted me, for the sake of the question, to go, right, they're still going to be running it, but you're going to start to, you're going to be the second in command, if you like. And I'd be like, fuck, that'd be a cool opportunity, especially if it was like a cool industry, and so supporting someone that is like really well known or a legend of what they do, that would quite excite me.
Okay, so you haven't really answered my question.
Oh, didn't I?
Well, you've found the character that you want.
So who is that person?
But what I'm asking is, what person or someone that you know comes to mind as if you had to work for someone, who would be your boss?
I don't really know anyone that fits the description that I just gave, though. Probably you.
That wasn't a trick question, but I mean, if you want that,
yeah, there you go. I'll be second in charge. You run the ship anyway. So.
Well, it's funnily enough, back in the day, we both wanted to be the boss, and we were, probably quite stubborn with that. These days, we'd probably, we've got a rugby ball, we're trying to throw it back to each other, hot potato. And I guess that's why we've eventuated to sharing the load. So both having the different parts of the role.
Yeah, it's it is a partnership, so yeah, it's kind of how it is. You didn't give me much to go on there.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, so no, it's been interesting, and I think people are going to like watching this, just getting to know a little bit more about you within the industry, but also just some little insights into how you think, operate, what makes you tick. So it'd be great to do this again. I'll have some more curly questions and put you in the hot seat, but thanks, Brady.
Oh, thanks. And just before we go, like I'm enjoying the podcast thing and what we're doing, and I think it's I agree. I'm not really, trying to push it or whatever, but I think if it's around long enough, it'll naturally just gain traction. And like I said, we've got some really cool guests lined up for the next 15 or so podcasts. We're talking like to people from the compliance world. The health and safety one came out today. Maintenance, HVAC, abseiling, all these things that are around buildings. And we'll also throwing in members of our team as well, just to get that the feel for the company and stuff. So asking more and more people out there, and just I guess raising awareness, sharing information.
I think what's really great is, there's even people in the industry outside of Auckland, and we know that when they come up into Auckland, they'll get in touch with us. Even in Australia, they'll get in touch with you, and you'll be able to podcast them and just even get a wider view or insights into what they know. So it's going to be it's going to be fun. And I think potentially we might start, could even start just doing, doesn't even have to be work related. It could be we start doing other things, just talking to interesting people, just to see what makes them tick, because essentially that's what I'm doing at the end of the day, is looking at industries, but realizing and knowing that those industries are nothing without the people and the businesses that those people have started up to service this industry, because that's essentially what we're all about. Is we're a service company and a service industry providing a service. So and it's raising awareness around that and hopefully giving it some profile and just slowly building momentum with it. So let's keep doing it. No, it's good, and you've done a great job to get it to where it is. So
cool. Cheers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.